Every Tuesday, Jennifer drove her kids to soccer practice in her minivan. But what her neighbors didn't know was that every Tuesday night, she was winning millions at underground poker games using skills from her Wall Street days. Welcome to Untold Legends, where ordinary people hide the most extraordinary secrets. Tonight's story will make you question everything you think you know about the person living next door. The alarm buzzed at 6:30 a.m. in the pristine two-story colonial house on Maple Avenue, Westchester County. Jennifer Chen-Morrison rolled out of bed, her blonde hair perfectly tousled in that effortless way that actually took 20 minutes to achieve. From the outside, she looked like every other suburban mom preparing for another day of scheduled chaos. "Mom!" 8-year-old Sophie's voice echoed down the hallway. "I can't find my shin guards." "Under your bed, sweetheart," Jennifer called back, already mentally calculating the day's timeline. School drop-off at 8:15, grocery shopping, PTA meeting at 2:30, soccer practice pickup at 5. The same routine she'd perfected for 3 years, the same performance that kept her invisible, in plain sight. Jennifer moved through her morning with practiced efficiency, packing lunches and checking homework while her husband David scrolled through his phone, oblivious to the careful choreography required to maintain their suburban illusion. "Don't forget Emma's birthday party is Saturday," David said without looking up. "The Hendersons are expecting us." Jennifer's hand paused for just a fraction of a second as she poured orange juice. The Hendersons. Jim Henderson was a federal prosecutor. His wife Sarah worked for the Treasury Department. Their parties were always filled with law enforcement families, people who might recognize a face from wanted posters. "Of course," Jennifer smiled, handing Sophie her lunchbox. "I already got the present." As her family rushed around getting ready, Jennifer stood at the kitchen window, watching her neighbor Mrs. Patterson tend to her prized roses. Mrs. Patterson waved enthusiastically, and Jennifer waved back with the practiced warmth of someone who'd learned to blend into any environment. What Mrs. Patterson didn't know was that the woman she shared gardening tips with every Sunday was Jennifer Chen, former quantitative analyst for Goldman Sachs, who had disappeared 3 years ago with $47 million in client funds and insider trading evidence that could bring down half of Wall Street. The soccer field at Riverside Elementary was buzzing with its usual Tuesday energy. Jennifer sat in her minivan, one of a dozen identical vehicles lined up along the fence, watching Sophie run drills with her teammates. Around her, other mothers chatted about fundraisers and vacation plans, their voices creating a comfortable background hum of suburban normalcy. "Jennifer!" Ashley Martinez tapped on her window. Ashley was a fellow soccer mom, real estate agent, and the closest thing Jennifer had to a friend in their carefully constructed new life. "Coffee later. I'm dying to hear about your book club." Jennifer's book club was her cover story for Tuesday nights. Every other week, she told her neighbors she attended a literary discussion group in Manhattan. It explained her late nights and occasional overnight absences without raising suspicion. "Rain check?" Jennifer said, checking her watch. "David's working late again, and I need to prep for tonight's discussion." "What are you reading this week?" "The Art of War," Jennifer replied without missing a beat. It wasn't entirely a lie. She'd been rereading Sun Tzu's strategies for months, applying military tactics to her increasingly dangerous double life. At 6:47 p.m., Jennifer Chen-Morrison, the suburban soccer mom, ceased to exist. She stood in front of her bedroom mirror, transforming herself with the precision of a method actor. The blonde hair came off first, a $3,000 custom wig that had fooled everyone for 3 years. Underneath was her natural black hair, now long enough to style in ways that dramatically altered her appearance. Contact lenses changed her eye color from blue to brown. Subtle makeup shifted the apparent shape of her nose and cheekbones. A padded bra altered her silhouette. Within 30 minutes, Jennifer Chen, the Wall Street fugitive, was back. The warehouse in Queens looked abandoned from the outside. Broken windows, graffiti-covered walls, the perfect camouflage for what happened every Tuesday night in the basement. Jennifer parked her sedan, purchased under a false identity, 3 blocks away, and walked through the industrial maze of loading docks and chain-link fences. The entrance was through a maintenance door that required 3 separate codes, each changed weekly. Jennifer's pulse quickened as she descended the concrete stairs, the familiar adrenaline surge that came with stepping back into her real world. The basement had been transformed into something that would make Vegas casinos jealous. Professional poker tables, championship-grade chips, and a surveillance system that would detect a card-counting attempt from across the room. But this wasn't about cheating. This was about pure skill, mathematical precision, and the kind of psychological warfare that Jennifer had mastered on Wall Street. Well, look who's back," rumbled Viktor Kozlov, a Russian immigrant who'd made his fortune in legitimate businesses before discovering that underground poker was both more profitable and more exciting than commercial real estate. "Ready to lose some money tonight, Wall Street?" Victor was one of only 3 people in the room who knew Jennifer's real background. To everyone else, she was simply Chen, a mysterious woman who showed up every Tuesday with $50,000 in cash and usually left with considerably more. "I'm ready to take yours," Jennifer replied, settling into her usual seat at the high-stakes table. Around her sat 8 other players, a mix of hedge fund managers, tech entrepreneurs, and professional gamblers who'd gathered for what had become the most exclusive poker game on the East Coast. The buy-in was $50,000. The average pot was over $200,000. On good nights, Jennifer walked away with enough money to fund her family's lifestyle for months. On great nights, she won enough to make a serious dent in the $47 million she owed to some very dangerous people. "Gentlemen," announced the dealer, a former Vegas professional named Marcus who ran the game with military precision, "tonight's special event, a $1 million freeze-out tournament. Winner takes all." Jennifer's heart rate spiked. A $1 million tournament meant serious players, serious money, and serious attention. It also meant the kind of visibility that could get her killed. But she needed the money. Her offshore accounts were running low, and the people she'd stolen from weren't known for their patience or forgiveness. Every month she stayed hidden was another month closer to either complete freedom or violent discovery. The first hand was dealt at exactly 9 p.m. Jennifer studied her cards, pocket kings, while simultaneously reading the micro-expressions of her opponents. This was where her Wall Street training became lethal. Years of analyzing market behavior, reading investor psychology, and making split-second decisions with millions at stake had given her skills that few professional poker players could match. By 10:30 p.m., she'd eliminated 3 players and accumulated over $400,000 in chips. Her mathematical mind calculated probabilities, while her psychological training read tells and betting patterns. She was in the zone, the place where Jennifer Chen, the Wall Street analyst, and Jennifer Chen, the suburban mom, merged into something more dangerous than either identity alone. That's when FBI agent Chen-Morrison walked into the room. Jennifer's blood turned to ice as she recognized the woman who'd been hunting her for 3 years. Agent Morrison looked different. Casual clothes instead of federal suits, blonde hair instead of brown. But Jennifer's survival had depended on memorizing the faces of everyone who wanted her captured or dead. Morrison wasn't here officially. She was undercover, probably working a different case entirely. But if she recognized Jennifer... "New player," Marcus announced. "Welcome to the game." Jennifer forced herself to breathe normally as Morrison took a seat directly across from her. Through sheer bad luck or cosmic irony, the FBI agent hunting Jennifer Chen was about to play poker with Jennifer Chen, neither knowing the other's true identity. "I go by Sarah," Morrison said, buying in for the minimum $50,000. "Hope you don't mind a newcomer." "The more the merrier," Jennifer replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. She had to play this perfectly, win enough to maintain her cover, but not so much that she drew attention. All while sitting across from the woman who'd made capturing her a personal mission. The next 2 hours were the longest of Jennifer's life. Every betting decision became a calculation, not just of cards and odds, but of detection and survival. Too aggressive, and Morrison might notice her sophisticated playstyle. Too passive, and the other players would sense weakness. Morrison was good, better than Jennifer had expected. Her betting patterns suggested serious training, probably learned during undercover operations. She was methodical, patient, and dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with poker. "Interesting play," Morrison commented after Jennifer bluffed her way out of a potentially disastrous hand. "You remind me of someone." Jennifer's pulse hammered against her eardrums. "Oh, a case I worked a few years back. Financial crimes. The suspect had this same calculated approach to risk management." The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun barrel. Jennifer forced herself to laugh. "I work in insurance. Risk management is my life." It wasn't entirely a lie. For 3 years, she'd been managing the ultimate risk, staying alive and free, while some of the most dangerous people in America wanted her dead. By midnight, only 4 players remained. Jennifer had $800,000 in chips. Morrison had $600,000. And 2 others shared the remaining $600,000. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. That's when Jennifer's phone buzzed with a text message that made her world collapse. "We know where you are. Tuesday night poker, Queen's Warehouse. You have 48 hours to return our money, or we collect in other ways. Your daughter's soccer practice is at Riverside Elementary. M." Jennifer's hands trembled as she read the message. M stood for Marcus Delacroix, the hedge fund manager she'd stolen from, and the kind of man who solved problems with violence rather than lawyers. Somehow, he'd found her Tuesday night routine. But that meant her family was in immediate danger. "Everything okay?" Morrison asked, noticing Jennifer's sudden pallor. "Just my babysitter," Jennifer managed, wondering when I'll be home. She had to get out of there, had to get to her family, had to somehow win this hand and disappear before Delacroix's people arrived. Morrison dealt the final hand with steady fingers. Jennifer looked at her cards. Ace of spades, king of spades. A strong hand, but not unbeatable. Morrison's expression revealed nothing, but her betting pattern suggested confidence. Jennifer went all in. "Bold move," Morrison said, studying Jennifer's face with the intensity of someone trained to read lies. "I call." Morrison flipped over pocket aces, the strongest possible starting hand. Jennifer's heart sank until the flop revealed 2 more spades, giving her a flush draw. The turn card was meaningless, but the river was the queen of spades, completing Jennifer's royal flush. "Impossible," breathed Viktor Kozlov. Jennifer had just won $1.6 million with one of the rarest hands in poker. But as she reached for the chips, she noticed Morrison's expression had changed from disappointment to suspicion. "That's quite a coincidence," Morrison said quietly. "The last time I saw someone make that exact play was Jennifer Chen, right before she disappeared with $47 million. The room went dead silent. Jennifer's hand froze halfway to the chips. Around the table, the other players sensed that something fundamental had shifted, though they couldn't understand what. Morrison's voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent years hunting dangerous people. Jennifer Chen, former Goldman Sachs quantitative analyst, wanted for securities fraud, insider trading, and theft of client funds. 3 years, 4 months, 16 days. Viktor Kozlov's chair scraped against the concrete floor as he pushed back from the table. The other players followed suit, suddenly understanding that they were witnessing something far more dangerous than poker. "I think you have me confused with someone else," Jennifer said, her voice steady despite the fact that her carefully constructed world was crumbling around her. Morrison pulled out her FBI badge with her left hand, while her right moved toward the concealed weapon at her waist. "Federal Agent Sarah Morrison, Jennifer Chen, you're under arrest." That's when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in 3 seconds later, bathing everything in hellish red shadows. In those 3 seconds of darkness, Jennifer had moved. Wall Street traders learned to think fast, but 3 years of living as a fugitive had taught her to move faster. She wasn't at the table anymore. "Where is she?" Morrison shouted, weapon drawn, scanning the room. "Fire exit," Viktor called out, but his voice carried a note of respect. He'd been around dangerous people his entire life, and Jennifer's disappearance had been professionally impressive. Morrison ran for the exit, but Jennifer was already gone. What Morrison didn't know was that Jennifer had spent months mapping every entrance, exit, and hiding spot in the warehouse. She'd been preparing for this moment since her first night at the table. Jennifer emerged from the warehouse through a utility tunnel that connected to the building next door. Her sedan was exactly where she'd left it, keys in the ignition, ready for the emergency escape she'd always hoped she'd never need. But as she drove through the Queens Industrial District, her phone rang. The number was blocked, but she knew who it was. "Hello, Jennifer?" Marcus Delacroix's voice was cultured, calm, and absolutely terrifying. "Quite a performance tonight, both at the poker table and with our FBI friend." "What do you want, Marcus?" "The same thing I've wanted for 3 years. My money, all of it. With interest." Jennifer calculated quickly. 3 years of compound interest on $47 million would be over $70 million. Money she didn't have and could never get. "You know I can't do that." "Then we proceed to alternative collection methods. Your husband David works late every Tuesday, such a dedicated insurance adjuster. Your daughter Sophie has soccer practice every afternoon. Easy targets, really." Jennifer's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. "If you touch my family..." "You'll what?" "You're a fugitive, Jennifer. You can't go to the police, you can't go to the FBI, you can't even go home because Agent Morrison is probably watching your house right now." As if summoned by his words, Jennifer's phone buzzed with a news alert. FBI raids Westchester home in connection with Wall Street fugitive case. They'd found her house, which meant her family was either in federal custody or... "Where are my husband and daughter?" Jennifer's voice was deadly quiet. "Safe. For now. But my patience has limits, and 3 years is quite long enough. You have 24 hours to transfer $70 million to the account I'm about to text you." fail to do so, and your family becomes leverage in a very different kind of negotiation. The line went dead. Jennifer sat in her car outside a 24-hour diner in New Jersey, her mind racing through possibilities and probabilities like the Wall Street algorithms she'd once programmed. $70 million in 24 hours. It was impossible by any conventional measure. But Jennifer Chen hadn't survived 3 years as a fugitive by accepting conventional limitations. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your family is safe but scared. Bring our money to Pier 17 tomorrow at midnight. Come alone." Mem. She forwarded the message to another unknown number, then typed, "Need emergency extraction. Family compromised. Willing to trade information for protection." The response came within minutes. Location? Jennifer typed an address in Brooklyn, then started driving. She was about to do something that would either save her family or get them all killed. The meeting took place in an abandoned warehouse. Apparently Tuesday night was warehouse night in New York. But this time, Jennifer wasn't there to play poker. She was there to make a deal with the only people who might have the resources to help her. The people she'd originally stolen the money from. Catherine Walsh entered the warehouse with 4 bodyguards and the kind of expression reserved for people who'd built financial empires through careful application of intelligence and controlled violence. Catherine's hedge fund had been Jennifer's original target, the source of the $47 million that had started this entire nightmare. "Jennifer Chen," Catherine said without preamble. 3 years of very expensive hunting, and you just call me?" "I have information you need," Jennifer replied, "about the insider trading network that I was supposed to be investigating when I disappeared." Catherine's eyes sharpened. "Continue." "Marcus Delacroix wasn't just a client. He was running a money laundering operation through your fund. I didn't steal $47 million. I prevented it from being laundered through terrorist financing networks. The FBI was closing in, so I took the money and ran, planning to turn it over to federal authorities once I had enough evidence to protect myself." "And where is this evidence?" Jennifer smiled grimly. "Distributed across 7 different safety deposit boxes in 4 countries, along with the $47 million, which has been earning interest in unmarked accounts for 3 years. Catherine studied Jennifer for a long moment. "What do you want?" "My family's safety, Delacroix's arrest, and a chance to disappear permanently." "In exchange for?" "The evidence that will clear your fund of any wrongdoing and put Delacroix away for life, plus the return of your money, with interest." Catherine's smile was sharp as a blade. "I think we can arrange that." Pier 17 at midnight looked like something from a crime thriller. Fog rolling off the water, abandoned shipping containers, and the distant lights of Manhattan creating a backdrop for what Jennifer hoped would be the final act of her 3-year nightmare. Marcus Delacroix arrived with 6 armed men, confident that he held all the cards. Jennifer arrived alone, or at least appearing to be alone. "Where's my money?" Delacroix demanded. "Where's my family?" Delacroix gestured, and 2 of his men brought David and Sophie from behind a shipping container. They were unharmed but terrified, duct tape over their mouths and their hands zip-tied. "The money, Jennifer?" Jennifer held up a tablet computer. "Offshore account number 47,291, currently containing $73 million, but it requires 2-factor authentication to transfer." "Do it. Release my family first." Delacroix laughed. "I don't think you understand your position here." "Actually," Jennifer said, "I don't think you understand yours." That's when the FBI moved in. Federal agents emerged from behind shipping containers, from boat positions on the water and from rooftop sniper positions that had been established for the past 6 hours. Agent Morrison's voice echoed through a bullhorn. FBI! Drop your weapons! The gunfight lasted exactly 47 seconds. When it was over, Delacroix and 3 of his men were dead. 2 were wounded and in custody, and 1 had escaped into the labyrinth of shipping containers. Jennifer ran to her family, cutting their restraints with hands that shook from adrenaline rather than fear. "Mommy," Sophie whispered, "are we safe now?" "Yes, sweetheart. We're safe." Agent Morrison approached with her weapon holstered. "Jennifer Chen, you're under arrest for securities fraud, insider trading, and theft of client funds." Actually, Catherine Walsh stepped out from behind an FBI tactical vehicle. "She's not." Morrison's expression shifted to confusion. "Ma'am, with respect, this is a federal operation. Under the authority of a federal task force investigating international money laundering and terrorist financing," Catherine continued. "Ms. Chen has been working undercover for the past 3 years, gathering evidence against the Delacroix organization." Jennifer stared at Catherine in amazement. The woman had just provided her with the cover story that would allow her to return to normal life. Morrison looked back and forth between them. "Is this true?" Jennifer found her voice. "The evidence is in Safety Deposit Box 2847 at Manhattan First National. Everything you need to shut down the network permanently." 6 months later, Jennifer stood at the sideline of Sophie's soccer game, cheering as her daughter scored the winning goal. She looked like any other suburban mom, but the illusion was different now, voluntary rather than desperate. Her testimony had helped convict 12 members of Delacroix's money laundering network. The recovered funds had been returned to their rightful owners, minus a substantial recovery fee that had been quietly deposited into an education fund for Sophie. Agent Morrison, who had become an unlikely friend during the months of debriefing and testimony, joined her at the sideline. "Any regrets?" Morrison asked. Jennifer watched Sophie celebrate with her teammates, David cheering from the other side of the field, their lives finally, genuinely normal. "About which part? The 3 years of living in fear? The underground poker games? Or the fact that I'm probably the only soccer mom in Westchester who knows 17 different ways to disappear without a trace?" Morrison laughed. "The poker games. You were really good." Jennifer smiled. "I still play. There's a game in Manhattan every Thursday night. Completely legal, charitable fundraising for inner-city youth programs." "Do you win?" "Always," Jennifer said. "But now I'm playing for the right reasons." As they walked toward the parking lot, Morrison's expression grew serious. "You know there are other cases, right? Other people who need the kind of help that someone with your unique skill set could provide." Jennifer looked back at the soccer field, at the simple suburban scene that had once been an elaborate disguise but was now simply home. "I'll think about it," she said. But they both knew she'd already decided. Some people were meant for ordinary lives, and some people were meant to hide extraordinary abilities behind ordinary facades. Jennifer Chen-Morrison was definitely the latter.